Democrats in Congress say they'll give the president until March 24th to strike a suitable deal with Iran before siding with their Republican colleagues and pressing for further sanctions. This despite a push this past week by Majority Leader Mitch McConnell to fast-track Senate approval was rejected by Democrats. And after Benjamin Netanyahu's fiery speech before Congress, insisting the deal as it stands is a bad one. John Barrasso is chairman of the Senate Republican Policy Committee. He is also a member of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. And Senator, it is good to have you on the program.
Thanks, Maria. Great to be with you.
Assuming the deal being talked about right now includes Iran continuing to enrich uranium, is it a bad deal?
That's my concern, because I think people all around the world know that a world where Iran has a nuclear weapon is a world that is less safe, less stable, and less secure. And my concern is the president is so eager for any deal that he will go with a bad deal. That's why I think it's critical that the Senate approve this like we do any treaty.
And by the way, we should point out that it's not just the Americans who are concerned, but the Arab states in the region are also concerned. You've spent time with the former king of Saudi Arabia, King Abdullah, and have heard firsthand about the concerns that the neighboring countries are talking about the fact that Iran supports Shiite Muslim groups in Yemen, Syria, Lebanon's political and militant movement, Hezbollah.
I was in Saudi Arabia earlier this year, visiting with the leaders there, including the current king, and the discussions always go back to Iran with a nuclear weapon and the nuclear arms race that will now follow, because if Iran has a nuclear weapon, Saudi Arabia wants one, Egypt will want one, Turkey will want one, the Arab Emirates will want one. So we will see a significant escalation of nuclear arms worldwide.
So what's the realistic timetable on dealing with Iran, do you think? I mean, this March 24th deadline and then the June deadline, how do you see this playing out?
Well, I think we need to put sanctions back if they don't hit this deadline. Sanctions are what brought Iran to the table in the first place. They need the money for their economy and also for their appetite. You know, they're funding efforts in Yemen. They're funding Hezbollah, Hamas. Even money goes to Assad in Syria from Iran. So anything we can do to withhold that money, I think, holds their feet to the fire.
All right, I want to talk more about this, Senator. Stay with us. A lot to get to with you, Senator Barrasso. But first, crunch time fast approaching in these nuclear talks with Iran. Will a deal be reached by the end of March, or will Tehran instead be hit with brand new sanctions? Fox News' senior correspondent Eric Shawn joins us with that angle. Eric, good morning to you.
Good morning, Maria, and good morning, everyone. The Senate could start considering a bill tomorrow that would require the president to submit any agreement with Iran to Congress. But others worry that won't nearly be enough.
The Ayatollah is a maniac. Here's another way to say it. He's insane.
Never one to mince words, former New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani joined other U.S., European, and Canadian officials, along with more than 20,000 protesters in Berlin, warning against a pending bad deal with Iran. The rally, sponsored by the largest Iranian opposition group, the National Council of Resistance of Iran, declared that Western powers should not give Tehran any daylight to build a possible bomb.
The mullahs came to the negotiation table out of utter desperation, but the policy of appeasement has emboldened the mullahs. Such a feeble policy amounts to encouraging fundamentalism, so Western powers must end it.
Oh, the proposed deal does reduce the level of uranium enrichment that would be needed for a possible nuclear weapon and takes other measures. And it also increases some inspections by the UN.
All of our partners are consistently exchanging and sharing information, sharing ideas, working together, meeting, and helping to try to drive this to the good conclusion that we want.
But critics charge it does not dismantle one single centrifuge. Some facilities would still be off limits to UN inspectors, and Iran's ballistic missiles, well, those remain untouched. And the deal with that sunset clause could end in 10 years.
The minute they become a nuclear power, Saudi Arabia does, Egypt does, Jordan does. And then you're going to end up with a real conflagration in the Middle East.
Well, the White House and other supporters say an imperfect deal is better than no deal at all. Well, in 16 days, we should learn how good or bad the deal is, if there even is one. Maria?
All right, Eric, thanks very much. Eric Shawn with the latest there. More now with Senator John Barrasso. And Senator, are you poised to say increase the sanctions against Iran unless we see a commitment to stop supporting terrorists around the world, as well as stopping the enrichment of uranium?
Yeah, absolutely. I want to make sure that any deal is accountable, enforceable, and verifiable. I'm ready to vote, and I'm ready to vote for or against, depending on what the deal says.
All right, let me move on to Obamacare. You attended the Supreme Court oral arguments for King versus Burwell this past Wednesday. You are a medical doctor for 25 years. What's your sense of the current playing field in terms of the Supreme Court looking at Obamacare?
Yeah, well, the Supreme Court has asked whether the president has acted illegally in having the IRS send subsidies to people under the president's health care law. The question in front of the court is, does the law mean what it says, or does it mean what President Obama wishes it says? And it has to do with the subsidies that go out. Maria, I was in the Wyoming state legislature. All of the time, legislation comes from Washington and says, if you want the money, you must do this. And the health care law says to states, if you want people there in your state to get subsidies, then you must set up a state exchange. Now, that's what the Supreme Court will decide in about 3.5 months. Sylvia Burwell, the Secretary of Health and Human Service, says the administration has no plan B. They have made no plans for if the Supreme Court rules against them. But Republicans are ready with an opportunity to provide temporary transition and help for people that have been hurt by the law. We want to protect the people, but not protect the law if the Supreme Court rules against the administration.
And of course, this case is one of the year's most important news subjects, with the potential to roll back that portion of Obamacare. It seems to me that the states would like to run their own healthcare system the way they see fit, and it's hard to really put a brushstroke one way on all of the states when you've got different states with different strengths in terms of healthcare, and not all should be the same. What's your take in terms of the states handling their own health care?
Yeah, the states ought to be the ones making the decisions about the individual mandate, the employer mandate, all of the different requirements of what kind of insurance people have to have. Whenever Washington makes a one-size-fits-all decision, it doesn't work in states all around the country. So the Republican proposal is to give the states more flexibility and freedom and choice, and therefore give the people in those states those additional opportunities to actually get the insurance that works for them, so that they can get the care they need from a doctor they choose at lower costs, and buy the insurance that works for them, not what President Obama says they need.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense, and that's what we've heard time and time again from various governors who've joined us on this program. Let me move on to Hillary and the emails scandal here, sending all of her emails from her private email during government business. There's a big security issue here, but what strikes you about this story?
Well, whether what she did is legal or illegal, it was wrong. And I believe her whole email system was set up deliberately so she could hide things. So I want to see all of the emails, not just the emails that she has so far released, because you don't know what else is out there. What did she delete? What did she destroy? And also, who else saw these? Maria, from a national security standpoint, did spies see these? Did hackers see these? So what is she trying to hide? And the Democrats right now are scrambling because they have all their eggs in the Hillary political basket for 2016. But this is just a continuation of the sort of conflicts that stick to the Clintons no matter where they go.
Yeah, but will you really be able to get all the emails? I mean, the server was in her home.
Well, there's going to be obviously efforts by the Republicans to get those, but I believe the press is going to want to see those as well. She has been pretty much blocking requests for information on her emails for an extended period of time, even under the Freedom of Information Act. So I think there's going to be an increasing cry to release the emails that will play into the presidential campaign, and we will never know if we get them all.
Yeah.
There'll always be that continuing doubt about what is she hiding.
Senator, thanks very much for joining us today. We'll be watching.
Thanks for having me, Maria.
Senator Barrasso there.